Hello, hello, mission driven entrepreneurs. Happy Friday. I'm back with you on our amazing The Life School Masterclass show with another amazing expert and guest from our beautiful community. As usual, I would like to introduce myself as we have so many new people joining us, and we're so blessed that the community is growing daily. And, we're getting to know each other and all the fun things that happen when you actually build a community. So I am your host, Alona Lopari, best-selling author, host of this Life School Masterclass show, and also of the Life School, where we help mission-driven entrepreneurs scale their 6 and 7 figure businesses on purpose through marketing and sales strategies so they don't have to sacrifice their income and impact for their mission and service. And today I have another beautiful guest on, as I said, Sonja Keeve, and we will be chatting everything podcasting. We speak so often in this community over, the impact that we can make and reach a wider audience so that we can really make that contribution to the mission that we chose to serve. And podcasting, of course, is another very fabulous way to reach new audiences, to make more impact, and to really, put your message and voice out there. Sonja, thank you so much for coming on our show and sharing everything that you'll share with us as far as this very important topic today.
Well, thank you so much, Alona. I'm so happy that we could connect here on your show. And I'm excited to share with your community all things podcasting.
Same here. The pleasure is always mine. And we have visited each other through your own podcast show. So I wanted you to share that with our community as well, because I know you have something wonderful happening there as well. And I'm so glad that you're coming by and sharing everything that you know about podcasting as well. So let's start with an introduction. Who is Sonja? Tell us a little bit more about you so people can get to know you.
Absolutely. Well, my name, as she said, is Sonja Keeve. I am the CEO and founder of Sisters with a Voice Podcast Network, where we are a community where we teach and train women entrepreneurs to build, monetize, and launch a podcast in just 30 days. I am also the host and executive director of two podcast international shows. The first one is called Inspiring Nations, where I interview women from across the globe that have stories of how they inspire others every single day. And the second show, which just launched in January of this year, is called Begin Again on Hindsight Media Radio. And that show is for women ages 30 to about 55 or older that have at some point in their life started a dream, started a business, started a book, started a new lifestyle, but for whatever reason, life got in the way. And so they halted all of their dreams. And so now they're shifting into a new season and they are now ready to begin again. And so it is an amazing community. And I just love impacting women in so many ways. And so this is what I do, this is what I love. And I'm also a wife, a mother. I'm also a first time Gigi and grandmother for short. And I'm a busy woman, but I always give time for family first, God first, who's the foundation for everything that I do. And so I'm just blessed and honored to be in this space to help women to just find their voice and impact the world.
Mm. Well, I love that, especially the fact that you've created so many spaces with not just one, but you mentioned two different shows, and you have different, people that you're reaching with those messages. And that's really wonderful out there that you have created something like that. And I'm sure a lot of entrepreneurs, would like to see what other avenues they can, start with to really, dibble dabble if you're at the beginning, kind of figure out what to do to put yourself out there, put your voice out there. So I know podcasting for me personally was a really comfortable way to start with the visibility part of growing my business because I was
Yes.
uncomfortable on camera and all of that. but it's all a progression and evolvement. So congratulations towards all your success and everything that you have created so far in order to make that impact that you just mentioned. So
Thank
Sonia,
you.
I know there's always a backstory to why we do what we do, and we kind of everything in our journey we always speak about kind of leads us to the next thing that we need to do. So tell us a little bit about the background. How did you get started with everything that you're doing today?
Well, it's so funny. The journey for me came out of a corporate layoff in 2015. I was with a company, with this particular financial company, which I will not name, but I was with them for about 5 years and working my way up the corporate ladder. The senior VP came in the next day on exactly March 10th of 2015 because he wanted to personally meet with me, thinking that was going to be a next level promotion. End up being told due to a reorganization they were going to have to let me go. And so I asked, well, could I at least say goodbye to my colleagues? Because I developed friendships over 5 years with the folks that I worked with, only to be told I had 5 minutes to collect my things and go. And in that moment, my whole identity was tied into corporate. I equated your titles to your level of importance, and so when that was snatched away from me, I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what was going to be my next. I went on a 40-day fast and asked God kind of what would be kind of the next thing for me. And I created a t-shirt line, apparel. And I was putting social media posts out there to encourage people, and created this t-shirt line called hashtag called Walk in Love to Creations. And the t-shirts say hashtag Walk in Love. And every time someone asked me about what that means, I wanted to create a community and create a movement where we perform a simple act of kindness and pass it forward. That led to me collaborating on my first anthology called Women Inspiring Nations, and realizing I needed to do more, wanted to have more impact. I kind of went back into prayer because that is what I when I'm going to do something and have a big decision in my life, and thinking, okay, what could I do? And through a social media dare or a challenge, I like to say, aspiring entrepreneurs at that time, like myself, we're tasked with coming up with a product or service we wanted to implement right away. And so someone had talked to me about podcasting. I knew a little bit about it, but not a whole lot. But I knew two things. I knew that I loved to talk, and I knew I loved inspiring women. And so Inspiring Nations was birthed on March 10th of 2018. And the significance of that day is, one, it's my mother's birthday. So I give honor to the woman who gave me life. And so every March 10th, we have a new season of Inspiring Nations. Two, I knew if I was going to start a podcast, I wanted to interview guests. And not knowing a whole lot of people, I just asked my network, if I start a podcast, would you be my guest? 50 women said yes. Some I knew, some I didn't know. The platform was far from perfect. But I knew that if these 50 women were saying yes to me, I knew that I had something special there. And so 3 months into the show, we had over 500 plus downloads. We were heard in across the United States and in my first three countries. And then by 2019, I partnered with Creative Broadcast Talk Radio LLP, and we were heard in over 164 countries. We are about to celebrate next month 4 years of Inspiring Nations, and I have interviewed women from across the globe. And I had the pleasure to interview Alona recently on the show. And so that was kind of my journey. And I realized through that corporate layoff, while it was probably the darkest period in my life, it ended up becoming the biggest blessing, because now I am in position to inspire nations.
Wow. I love the story. And we can also relate with what you said that, closed door is open door to new opportunities. And of course, at the moment, it sounds, it's challenging to get over that. But I love that you turn to your faith, because
Yeah.
I think that's another topic I like to discuss more on this show as well, because as an entrepreneur, really growing our faith because there's so much uncertainty and there's so many things that we're always doing that we need to figure out. Our brain is always working and our creativity is always sparking, that, sometimes in those moments when you are not getting maybe the results after you've taken so much action in something,
Yeah.
unless we grow our faith. And I love that you said you just gave yourself some time to kind of
Yeah.
recenter, refocus, and
Yeah.
kind of meditate within. And you turn to your spiritual practice on what is that next step look like for you, and you wait to take action, because sounds like right after that you kind of, I call it a breakthrough after
Yeah.
each thing that is not working. I'm like, all right, breakthrough's
Yeah.
coming. So
Yes.
let's be
Yes.
patient. And growing patience is another really important thing, and that comes with faith, and not letting the fear take over a lot of times.
Yes.
It's so
Yes.
normal when something uncertain, especially working at corporate for so many years, just like you
Yeah.
mentioned. Well, it's like, I don't know anything else. Like, what is going to
Yeah.
happen?
Yeah.
And I can relate to that as well. I used to be the safest corporate structure employee that could ever be. And look at myself
Yes.
now. It's like, oh my gosh, I love risks. I get bored now with everything. It's like something is
Yes.
reasonable, go to the next level. Alona just,
Yes.
that's where the magic is. So you kind of learn to grow and evolve. But I also have my own spiritual practice. I think it's very important to really grow and really focus on your faith every time
Yes.
life throws you curveballs, and they always will happen,
Yes.
especially in your business. The bigger your mission, the bigger your impact, the bigger the curveball.
Ooh. Yes.
So learning to just hang on and have these very solid practices into our lives is I think, at least for me, it's like how I stay grounded and sane, and always believe that even though this didn't work out the way I wanted it to,
Yeah.
it's working out in my favor for the highest service. And we're always taken care of, and we're always guided from
Yes.
whatever we believe in. So anyway, that just came up to me organically as you're sharing that. I think is very important. And so let's talk about podcasting, Sonia. So you are
Yes.
the expert at it. You build all these amazing audiences and shows. So, no one better than you can share with us, if someone is looking to start a podcast, where should they start? What is your, the tips that you can give them? And also, if someone is already have a podcast, we're always looking to grow it, find ways to also reach a bigger audience, monetize it eventually as well. Because at the end of the day, I always say we're also here for the income, right? Because without
Yeah.
the income, we cannot have resources that we need in our business so that we can make a better impact. So it's all connected somehow. So share with us whatever you like to share, as far as where do we start and how do we grow a podcast.
Great, thank you. So, really, for those that are watching, definitely, I like to start with the three C's of podcasting, as I like to call it. And the first C is clarity. You need to understand before you even start a podcast. Why is it that you want to start a podcast? And there are different reasons for different people. Some want the more visibility. Some want to actually start a business. That's actually how I started my business, through doing a podcast. Some want to connect with those influencers they've always wanted to be a part of. And so you have to have a clarity and a sense of, well, why is it that you want to start a podcast? And then once you understand the why, then answer the question, what will be the overall goal for the podcast? Because there are, believe it or not, 1.75 million podcast shows out there today as of 2021. And so being able to cut through all of that noise of, how do I get the visibility so that the people that I want to serve connect with me? It starts with being on your messaging. And when you are clear on your messaging and your why you want to start and the goal, then you want to have the commitment, because this is a long game. You are building a relationship with the listeners that are going to tune into you week in and week out. And so I have found that those that have been kind of in the game and maybe experienced some type of burnout, it's because they haven't been committed to the process. And so when you are starting to look at your life and include everything in your life, because with podcasting, it should be the fun hard work that you do, because your expertise is going to either solve a problem or it's going to help pursue a passion in someone. And so knowing that you have someone's undivided attention for a specific amount of time, that's golden, because you have the audience and you're the expert, you're the solution. So decide, how committed will you be to this process? Will you do a show once a week for 30 minutes? Will you do it daily, weekly, monthly? But I always say, with brand new podcasters, especially if you have a busy life, like I said, I do two shows. I host on Mondays and Wednesdays, but I do that once a week for 30 minutes. And if I were to ask you, what could you talk about for 30 minutes, that would transform the lives of the people you want to serve? You could drop topics for me just like this. And so that commitment is key, because what that commitment will do was help you to be, the third C, consistent. We are all on social media, and sometimes some people want to walk away from this saying, I can't do the social media. But guess what? This is where a lot of your clients live now, especially since COVID. A lot of people are doing business online. And the beauty of it is, for me, when a lot of companies or entrepreneurs were building businesses and had those brick and mortars, when COVID hit, a lot of them had to shut their doors, but I was still building my business. I never missed a beat. And the thing that what podcasting does is, think of this as just an extension of what you already do. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel. I'm sure many of you out here have written books, you have blogs, you have spoken on stages, whether virtual or in live. All of that written work that showcases your expertise can be easily turned into podcast episodes. But many people just don't realize they already have everything they need. And so I tell people, in its simplest form, if you can open your mouth, then you can start a podcast.
Mm. Ooh, that was deep. The one that hit me the most, Sonia, is I wish I knew you. I say this all the time when we met. When I started my podcast, because it was very stressful, the tech and like which platform, and then how to align it with everything I was doing anyway. So wasn't taking much more time. It was just kind
Right.
of like, implementing in the time management that I was already doing. But what you just said with the clarity is big, because it aligns exactly with the business strategy that I do. Clarity is big. Why are you doing it? It matters, the strategy
Yeah.
behind. And it sounds like a business strategy, but the strategy is always the focus, the intention.
Yeah.
What is that focus and intention that you have? What would you like to use this platform for? Right, so being clear on that is really important, I think, for the audience to really get a grasp on. And also the other part of what you said with as far as as far as which topic would you speak about without preparation. What are you
Yes.
the most passionate about? That's another way to create content and topics that it's not
Yes.
going to take you long to just open up your mic, or you don't even need a
Yep.
mic. And
Nope.
I'm sure you can tell us about the tech, because everyone's always worrying about that. Like, well,
Yeah.
what platform do I use? Do I need a mic? What equipment do I need? And all of these good things. But just like put yourself out there, and now you can repurpose content, right? So, you're making one piece of content and you can repurpose it in so many ways. That's the same way this show is being, repurposed into a video show, and also in other ways as a podcast as well, right? So
Right.
we are blessed. We could do something once, and we can stream it in so many levels, in so many
Yes.
ways, reach a bigger. So I think what you shared there is very, very important. And what about the tech? Let's start there. So I think that's something that everyone kind of gets hung over. Recommend.
Well, let me just say this, and I'm probably going to blow your mind. You don't need fancy equipment to get started. Many of us have laptops that have speakers on them. You can simply start your podcast by using a platform like Zoom or Restream or StreamYard, and you press the record button and share your expertise. Many people get hung up not wanting to start their podcast because they don't have the equipment, or they spend so much money on equipment that they don't even need. With a podcast, you absolutely want to have good quality sound. But I can tell you, when I launched in March of 2018, I almost did not launch because I was thinking just like you, the question you've asked. I was thinking, oh, I need to have the ring light and the microphones and the boomstick and every, all of these pieces. And I would have missed out on those 50 women that said yes simply because I didn't have what I thought needed was the equipment. Now, of course, as you continue to build your show, then you can make the investments. And with those investments, honestly, one of the microphones that I started out with and still use to this day is the ATR 2100. It is a very portable microphone. It is USB compatible, and you can travel with it. So literally, when I purchased it, it was $79 on Amazon. I think right now it goes for about maybe $100. And that is a very good quality microphone. Many beginner podcasters use it. But if you don't have it in your budget, if you have a laptop, you can start with $0 until you can build to get the equipment. But I started off my first several shows on my laptop, not having the microphone yet when I launched, because the impact I wanted to have would have been missed, and that moment would have been missed. Because think about it. Think about just in your life, all of those moments where you achieved something, didn't have the money, didn't have everything together, but you said yes to it anyway. That's the feeling you want to have. The moment you are excited about wanting to launch a podcast is the moment you're supposed to do it. Because remember, it doesn't have to be perfect, but you do have to begin to get started.
Oh, yeah. Amen. Isn't that true for everything? I love that. That's a big message there. Just start with what you know and just kind of, roll with it and evolve along the way for sure. That's how we do anything in the
Yeah.
entrepreneurship world anyway. Uh, so there's no perfection, right? Just
No.
go put it out there and just kind of flow and improve yourself in the process, and always be in this continuous improvement mindset. Everything will evolve and you always will get better at it because you also are learning this new skills. So
Yes.
very crucial. Sonia, how about growing our podcast? So let's say people have their podcast for a couple of years, they've grown a good
Mhm.
audience. How is it that they can scale their podcast and grow it to the next level?
So definitely once you've launched the podcast, now you've got to maintain it, right? And so to maintain the podcast, one of the things that I love doing is inside of my community, when I drop a new episode, I'll ask for reviews. Don't be afraid of the ask. Some people are scared, like, I don't know if I should ask people to review my podcast because I don't want to seem pushy. But you want those reviews because you want more people tuning into your shows. I mean, because when you launch a podcast, and of course, when you launch on particular podcast platforms, it can simultaneously broadcast in multiple places. But remember, you are the brand for your show. So you are your best walking billboard. So to ask people, um, um, review my show. Sometimes I'll actually have contests where I can get other podcasters to rate each other shows, because you build this community. Also with your podcast, um, if you have an interview style type of podcast that helps you to maintain it and grow it, having influencers in the industry in which you serve. I got so many. I got so much visibility around my show, Inspiring Nations, when I started to get more influential guests, and that came onto the show. Because it's funny, when you're on social media, it's like with your family. Like, people don't think it's something serious until they see a superstar that they think, comes onto your show. And then all of a sudden they're like, well, let me take a look at, what Sonya's doing. Well, this is interesting. Like one of my first guests influencers that I had was Amy Porterfield. And she came onto my show, and then for those who know her, she has a multi-million dollar business. She worked under Tony Robbins, and how I made that connection, I was inside of another Facebook community group, and she was the special guest. And while all of us were asking her different questions about marketing strategies, how she built her business, how she went from 0 to 6 figures and 7 figures, I asked the question, and I asked the moderator, I said, do you think she would be okay if I asked her if she would be a guest on my show? And I didn't think whether or not they would allow that, but the floor was open. And I used that moment for my big ask. And I asked Amy, I told her that I had a podcast show. I admire watching her, listening to her show. And I asked her, would you be open and willing to be a guest on my podcast show? And guess what? She said yes.
Yes.
And so when that happened, then I got more influencers. And so definitely know who you are, know the value that you bring for your show. That's going to help you build and scale it. And then as you're ready to start monetizing, let me blow your mind again. Sponsorships is not the only way you can monetize a show. If you already have products and services that you already offer, when you create your own podcast platform, you get to advertise your products and services for free because it's your very own show. Because think about it, if you're on a radio or TV spot, it costs thousands of dollars for just a 30-second spot. But guess
Mhm.
what? You get to say, if you got a new book coming out, a new program coming out, advertise that on the show, because statistics have shown that 54% of those that have tuned into a podcast have admitted that they bought a product or service that was advertised on a podcast show. And so I help my clients make that monetization instantly, because remember, I love believing working smarter and not harder. So what is it that you have in your hands already? And so hopefully your mind is racing like, oh, I've got programs, I got books, I've got speaking engagements. A lot of that will open up. And then lastly, with the speaking engagements, if you've always wanted to speak on stages, by having a podcast, guess what? You are already starting your speaking career, because it is an art by having a podcast. Having a podcast, people want to tune into people who can complete a sentence, right? Who can speak well. So this becomes a skill that you can develop. And then when you interview guests, guess what? That's another skill, because interviewing someone is an art to it. And so this will help you with your public speaking. And most podcast shows are done in an audio format. So, like for me, I may interview my guests like you see me here through Zoom or Restream, but the final product ends up being audio, because I want my guests to feel comfortable. So, right here in my own studio, and no, you don't have to go spend thousands of dollars renting a studio. If you have a space right there in your home, you can start your podcast, build it, launch it, and start monetizing right away.
Wow, Sonia, oh my gosh. This is like paid content, but I love it. I love it. That's what we here to do and serve. You dropped so many things, and now you got me thinking that I should, utilize the platform a little more on clarity and vision with my brand. It's so true what you said, and I can't believe that you got Amy Porterfield. That's amazing, and it just goes to show you that you never know. Just
Yeah.
ask. You
Yes.
never know what you will get. So we have to learn, especially as women or as service-oriented entrepreneurs. I see this all the
Yes.
time. We just like, I don't like to ask. I don't like to do the selling. I don't like to do that part. But again, it's switching your mindset over. You are offering something. You never
Yes.
know who needs what you have. So
Yes.
really sharing that in so many ways, whether you are speaking about your program or offer, or whether you're asking someone to join your podcast, or even asking for an interview, for a review on your podcast, right? Because if you've
Absolutely.
been making your shows valuable and you're giving value, then you have earned the right to ask. I always say that with everything I do. Earn
Yes.
the right to ask, and then it becomes a easy thing to do, and it just becomes a sharing and
Yes.
collaboration. What's the worst that can happen? They could say
All
no, you move
all
on
I
with
can
your,
say no.
and that's really all. All right, Sonia, me and you can go on forever. We have to close out the show because, within this very short amount of time, I think you really have, served the audience for sure and given them new ways of thinking, whether they have something, they want to start
Yep.
something, or they are looking to grow it. There's content here for both those stages and audiences. So I want to thank you for everything that you shared with us so far. And as an end result, I would like you to leave the audience with your very own special message that you like to share with us. And also, where is it that people can find you? Because you're a gem. You have so much to offer with people really in this area that, and getting the help with putting their voice out there. And where is it that people can connect with you further and find you and get access to all your amazing shows and everything that you do? And get access to your world.
Absolutely. So you can definitely find me on all social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Sonja Keeve. That's SonjaKeeve. And so you can connect with me there. I also have a free Facebook community group called Build, Launch, and Monetize. And so if you'd like to be a part of that group, absolutely, for those that are interested in wanting to start a podcast. And then, of course, if you're like, whoo, I'm ready to launch in 2022. I definitely want to offer you all the opportunity to join my 6-week program called Launch Your Podcast in 30 Days. The next class will be on April the 10th. And so if you want more details, absolutely DM me and we can connect and get you started to launching a podcast in 2022. Because the thing that I know for sure, one of my favorite quotes of all time is by Wes Moore, and it says, I would rather flirt with failure than to never have danced in my joy. So thank you so much, Alona, for this amazing opportunity to be here with you and your community today.
Ooh, absolutely. We will stay with that last message and end our interview here. Thank you so much, Sonia, again for what you shared. And I hope that you reach out to Sonia and get your voice out there. Visibility equals impact and equals income. So it's just how it works. It's an exact formula for all of you that like math. So thank you so much for coming on. And also reminding you, as I mentioned in the show, that this show is aired inside our YouTube channel, Alona Lepari Life School, and also on where all major podcast platforms are available as a podcast. Thanks so much. And I will see you guys next week. Bye, everyone.